So China announced a huge increase in numbers of cases this Thursday and a jump in the number of deaths. Two officials from Hubei province were fired after the new figures were announced. Well, joining me now is Frank-Jürgen Richter, who's chairman and founder of Horasis, which is bringing together global corporate leaders, including those based in Asia. Welcome along to the programme. So with these new figures out, is China finally coming clean about the true extent of coronavirus, do you think?
I'm very sad about what's happening in China right now, and my thoughts are those who died and their families. We are debating the numbers, and there's a lot of unclarity. I think there's still a best-case scenario possible where the virus might be contained by end of March or early April. I think China is putting health above everything right now.
Well, this misinformation, I mean, how problematic is it for the economy, for businesses to keep running?
China has a very robust economy. Even with the US-China trade war, the Chinese economy was growing around 6%. Of course, there's an impact. We can't deny that. And China is now the new engine of globalization. China is at the center of global supply chains. So there's a ripple effect even on the global economy. But I believe that China will catch up once the virus is over. It will still achieve close to 6% growth.
I mean, China's taken good measures, or that's what you have said in the past, to prevent the virus from spreading or making the situation so much worse. Why do you say that?
I believe that China is still governed by a one-party system, top-down, and of course have the means to control the virus. I think what they're doing right now is exactly the right thing. Shielding off whole cities, they're putting limits on transportation, on public gathering. I think similar things won't be possible in the West. So I believe that China is doing the right thing, also putting now a lot of emergency measures into place to boost again the economy. And the People's Bank of China just announced to put $170 billion into the system.
But there has been criticism over how authorities have been dealing with this. They've tried to cover it up at the very beginning, and of course they didn't act on the discovery by the Chinese doctor who first found this virus. What do you say to that?
They've been a little bit late, absolutely. Once they understood the whole dimension of the issue, but after they understood, I think they're really doing the right things. And now what's happening is really also global collaboration. They're working with WHO and other countries. They're letting in doctors to help and to collaborate. So collaboration is very important. We shouldn't leave the Chinese alone to solve this issue. And we have to see the whole issue in a global context.
You mentioned there the kind of economic impact on China of what's going on. But what about internationally? What are corporate leaders telling you about their businesses? So
if you look into a worst-case scenario and the pandemic is really happening and spreading around the world, it might lead, of course, to a global economic crisis, because now the whole economy is kind of intertwined. 18 years ago, when SARS happened, China was able to contain the issue on its own. China was mainly an export-oriented economy. Now China has, of course, its own domestic market. Domestic demand is very important. But China is also the engine of technology. Apple, for example, is manufacturing most of its iPhones in China. So the whole value chain might be disrupted. So let's just hope that the worst-case scenario is not happening.
We talked about misinformation. What about discrimination here and how that's impacting business?
Discrimination is happening, I would say, outside China. Whenever, people see a Chinese walking in the room, there's a bit of a sentiment, don't get too close to me. We see this even on planes, when Chinese enter a plane or at airports.
You've experienced this?
I experienced myself, and a lot of people are experiencing it. And I think this has to stop. Discrimination is the worst thing in this situation.